Overwhelmed by the pros? Then let a beginner teach you. I know you've been frustrated by all these tutorials out there because these professional game developers have no idea what it's like to be a beginner again. So their advice is so useless. Because I'm a beginner, I know exactly what beginners need to know. They need to know the fundamentals, and that's it. Let's get going. I assume you already downloaded and installed it. So yeah, there's a create button in the corner. Just click on it. Name it whatever you want. Put it wherever you want. Render doesn't matter. Now open it up and you should see something like this. Let me just give you a quick rundown of what this is. Here's the file system where all your files will be. Here's the node hierarchy. It's pretty much just the objects in the scene and the building blocks. Here's the inspector tab to find all the different objects properties. And these different tabs between your 2D scenes, your 3D scenes, and your scripts. Do not worry about the asset library. You're going to be way too overwhelmed for that. We're starting in 2D, right? It's easier to learn there. So click 2D scene. Wow, now we have a 2D scene. I'm just going to rename this game. Hey, that means we have a game. Let's try to run the game. Put the play button over here. I want to select the current scene. I'll actually make a new folder for my, oh my gosh. I'll actually make a new folder for my scenes and then save it in there. We run our game. Wow. There we go. We made a game. A little bit bland, isn't it? I feel like we should do something about that. So how do we interact with this game? Well, we could add a character. Tap on this old plus button over here, and then you should be able to make a new node. There's a lot of nodes. Don't worry about it. But type in character in the search bar, and you get character body 2D. Wow, now we have a character. But it's kind of showing us a little bit of a warning symbol here. What is that? You hover over it. It says the node has no shape, so it can't collide with things. Consider adding a collision shape. As a child. Oh, well, we make sure we have this selected. We then add a collision shape. Oh, now what do you want? A shape must be provided. You go over here and you'll find node properties. And there just so happens to be a shape. I'm gonna do a cap. So, hey, so we have a player, right? So we should be able to play our game, right? And we have a player, right? No. We still don't see our character. Why don't we see our character? Well, because the character has no image attached to it. We could, well, let me actually just rename this player real quick. So what you're saying is the character needs a sprite. The player needs a sprite. Well, we can click the plus button and add a sprite. Well, no, we have a sprite. No, we don't. Sprites are 2D images or textures. We don't have any images. We could see this icon down here in the file system. We could drag this up there and use that as the sprite if you want to. I don't know. I'd prefer if you didn't. I'd prefer if you somehow managed to get a hold of your own art. But if not, that's fine. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make my own right now. Just to show you that it doesn't matter. I'm gonna make a stick figure man, and I'm gonna put it in the same folder. I'm gonna put it in the same folder that my game project is in. So you could drag that up. Yay! Now we got a player. A little big. If you want to be able to squeeze it, but you don't want it to squish like that, you can hold shift and it'll keep its proportions. That's good, right? We have our player now, right? So now that we have a player, we should be able to play a game, right? Kind of just floating there. Why is the character not moving? Well, this character body does not have a character controller. There's an interesting cool thing about Godot here. You see up here, there's this scroll looking thing with a plus. That is to add a new script. We want to add a script to our player here. And if you see, it already starts off with a basic character controller template. So we add that, and then you'll be opened with this, and you'll be, I know you're overwhelmed. Calm down, you don't have to worry about that. Well, we don't even have to look at it right now. Well, actually, while it's here, I might as well at least teach you a little bit about what's going on. These up here are variables. They pretty much hold a value to be used later. Like you can see this jump velocity value is being used down here. This speed value is being used down here and down here. These are referenced as constants, which means that they are not expected to change throughout the game. The physics process function just means that all of this is going to be run 60 times per second. If you're not on the floor, you're gonna go down by the force of gravity. I can introduce you to if statements and conditionals. So this is a very basic conditional. Conditionals are pretty much, this thing can only happen if this other thing has happened. So we're not going to be affected by gravity. I know that's not how reality works, but bear with me for a moment. This thing can only happen if this happens. If we are not on the floor, we fall down by the force of gravity. If we press the jump button and we're on the floor, we go up in the air. If we press a left or right button, we'll go that direction with a certain amount of speed. That's all the important stuff. You don't even have to worry about it. Let's just press play. If you press play, you see that we fall. Can't exactly move though. By the way, you could press F5 to play and F8 to close this little window that pops up. We do move, we do fall. We can't actually control it though. But if you really quickly, you'll notice that we can control it because the arrow keys are actually valid. Why isn't it WASD? I want to be able to move in WASD. Okay, fine. Go up here to project settings. There's a tab called input map. So if we're adding new actions, just add them by their name and then press the add button. So I want a left, a right, and a jump. You'll notice by the right of there's a plus sign. So when you click on it, it starts to listen for what button you want that action to be associated with. I want my left action to be associated with A. I want my right action to be associated with D. And I want my jump action to be associated with the spacebar. So now when you play it, I about forgot. God dang it. I thought you just said we'd be able to move with WASD if we put that in. Well, here's the thing about that. We didn't update the script. So just focus on this yellow part right here. These are what you call strings, by the way. Anything in quotes, pretty much just strings. So we want to replace these words with the words that we just put in the input map. So for my left one, it's just going to be left, not UI left. My right, it's going to be right, not UI right. And my jump is going to be jump, not UI accept. So now if we play it, we should be able to move back and forth. I know you're yelling at me right now, being like, hey, why can't we just make a floor so it'd be easier? Fine. You want a floor? You want a floor? I'll get you a floor. Fine. Click on our little game here because, you know, if we had this selected, then the floor would be part of the player, but we don't want the floor part of the player. We want it part of the game. How do we make a floor? Well, there's a node called a color rect. It displays a solid color rectangle, and we can move it and scale it to be whatever, however we want. And then in the top right corner, you could see you could change this color. Just change it. Don't make it white. Change it. Right now, change it. I want you to change it. I'll make mine this color. Now, if we play it, we should have a floor, right? We should land on the floor. No, we shouldn't. Why is that? Well, because it does not have its own collision shape. Collision shapes keep things from collisioning. Wow, why is it angry at us? It says only as a child of area 2D, static body 2D, rigid body 2D, character body 2D. Okay, so we will do a static body and then make the collision shape a child of the static body. It's also going to be a squared shape, so just drag it over your floor and then that should be fine, right? You should be able to collide with it. Well, here's the thing about that. Why are you waist height? If you're already way beyond this point, you probably know why. We didn't adjust our player collision shape to be the size of the player. So now that the player's collision shape is the size of the player, we're on the floor now. And we can move, and we can jump. Woo! I mean, that's fun and all, but there isn't really a goal. Well then let's make a goal. We could do another color rectangle. I kind of want it to look like a door. You know, just some visible area of the screen that you could see. So it's brown. Now that we have an area, we have a goal. We should be able to win the game, right? Well, no. Well, actually, I don't want to go behind the door. So this is how Godot organizes things. It's referred to as something called a z-index. So the farther down this hierarchy they are, the closer to the screen they are. So I want the player to be above all of those. And I'm in front of the door. Great. Nothing really happens though. Why? Because it isn't detecting us. I'm actually going to rename these real quick just so it's easier for me later. So the door here, I'm actually going to rework because it's not detecting us. So how would we do that? I'm actually going to make it to where the floor is a child of the static body. So this is my new hierarchy. We got our static body with the color rect and the collision shape, and we got our player with a collision shape and a sprite. But now we need to be able to detect the things because when we're in this area, we want something to happen. So what better way to do that than to do an area 2D? I'll actually put the brown door in the area 2D. So this area 2D says it can't collide. It needs a collision shape. Do you remember how to add a collision shape to it? That's 100% right. You press the plus button. You just type in your collision and then you bam. Do you remember how to change the shape of it? Yeah, you do. So I'm just going to drag it over here onto the door here. Wow, we have a door. So now it should be interactable. Well, nothing's happening. Now you might be like, hey, you put a collision on the floor and that's why we don't go through the floor, but you put a collision on the door, but we can go through the door. That's because it's a child of an area 2D node, which is using the collision shape as more of like a detection area, like a spotlight almost. It's pretty much just like, hey, you're in there. You're in there. Oh my God, I'm so bad at being a YouTuber. But anyway, it's nothing's happening right now. Why is it not happening? Why is nothing happening? Well, we need to set up signals. So a cool thing about this area node, let's go over here to the properties panel, and we click on the node up here. We will find this node's signals so that we can send out a signal whenever we get in this area. I'm going to show you the body entered signal. That actually reminds me how I have been doing it is I would give the main game scene a script. If you know way more about this stuff than I do, then you're probably cringing at me right now. I honestly don't care. It really doesn't matter. So we do our body entered, and it'll want to connect to a certain script. So the way I've been doing it is I would just connect it to the game script, and it made its own function in our game script on area 2D body entered. The reason it says pass here, pass just allows you to like not need any code for any specific thing. It just keeps the engine from being mad at you. Because you see when I take it out, it wants something to be there. But when you say pass, it's fine. Okay, so we have a signal, so something should happen when we go in there, right? No. So here's a simple thing that you might find fun. Let's get rid of the pass and all that. We're going to be real coders today. There's a certain little thing called print. Now put an open parentheses. It'll close it for you at the back end. And put some quotation marks and type whatever you want in here. Hey, whatever you want to see. And then let's play the game again. So now, whenever we walk into our little detection area, it says it right there. Hey, this is practically a game. You have a method of input, you have a goal, you have feedback. This is practically a game. I'm gonna change this print to you win. Just to be like, hey, it's a game. I won. Yeah, so while technically we might have a game, we don't have a whole lot to do. So a good place to start is to get something to pick up. And because I want us to be able to pick it up whenever we just walk over it, we can use another area 2D node. I'm just going to rename it collectible. I think that's how you spell collectible. What does it want? It wants a collision shape. Do you remember how to add a collision shape to it? Do it by yourself. I'm kidding. I'm going to do it with you. Do you remember how to set the shape of the collider? Yeah, you do. I'm going to set it to a circle. I feel like circles are nice, but we can't see our collectible. So let's say I want to add a sprite. Well, that's not how you spell sprite. Oh my God, my brain doesn't work. You know what? I'm going to make an entirely new sprite. If you have images, you can do whatever. You can throw this icon in there if you want to. I just want to show you that it really doesn't matter what it is or how it looks. Games don't need to be pretty. Let's say I'm getting a taco. That is a suspicious looking taco. Whatever, let's try something else. Let's just let it be a present. Send it to that folder. Boom, now I got a present. Oh my God, that's a big present. Shift drag the corner to keep the proportions. Middle mouse to move your screen here. Drag it into our little level here. So we have a collectible, right? So we should be able to collect the collectible. Well, no, not really. Also, I want the player to be in front of the collectible. Remember to keep the player at the bottom. But nothing's happening. Why is it not happening? Because we aren't sending out a signal. Do you remember how to do that? You go over here on the right side. It'll say node right up there. And then we find the signals. I'll do the body entered signal and do the same thing. Attach it to the game script. It'll add a function here into our game script. We already know how to print statements into the console. So let's kind of do the same kind of thing. Print. This time I'm gonna type yoink. Yoink LOL. Meaning I got it. Type whatever you want. Really doesn't matter. So now when I walk into this present here, boink, I got it. Yoink. I yoinked it. And I win. I yoink and I win. Yay. What a fun game. That does sort of beg the question though. It's not really disappearing though when we yoink it. What if we wanted it to disappear when we yoinked it? This is going to be a little codey. Don't worry. I know you're overwhelmed right now. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. Let's add a variable because I want to reference this collectible in the script. Here's the thing you could do. Hold Control or whatever applicable and then click and drag it over here. Boom. Now you have a reference to your collectible node in your script. On ready pretty much means that right when the game starts, it recognizes it as valid. Var means it's a variable. Collectible is the name of the variable. And this is the name and the node path of the node. Easy. So what do we want to do whenever we enter the area? We want it to go. We want it to disappear. We want it to be free. Speaking of be free, let's reference our variable, whatever we named it, whatever it named itself. And then if you put dot, you could start accessing all these properties, signals, and functions. But we're just going to do queueFree because we want the collectible to be freed. So we run the queueFree function on the collectible. By putting a dot in between it, we can access it. So in layman's terms, the thing leaves, it's gone. Thing dot leaves. So now I check to see if it works. And it worked. Nicely done, hero. Wow. So fun. Let's make it a little more interesting. What if we could only win the game if we get the collectible? Let's move it a little bit out of the way. What if we could only win the game if we pick up the collectible? That's a very common mechanic, right? You can't finish a level unless you are in possession of something. You can't continue to do something else unless you have something in your possession. So how do we detect that we have it in our possession? Because technically, we're just killing it in Minecraft. We're not actually picking it up. It's just sort of the illusion that we're picking it up, but it's actually just deleting itself. So how do we tell the door that we have the collectible? Well, there's a couple different ways we could do this. There are a couple different types of variables that we could use here. We could say variable var pickup is equal to false. This would be what is known as a Boolean variable, which is pretty much can only be set to true or false. So if we did pickup to false, like at the beginning of the game, we don't have it. So it's false by default. But if we enter the area of the collectible to where it disappears, then pickup can equal true because we picked it up. Does that do it? No. Why not? Because we need to set the conditional. So we want the door to only print you win if pickup is equal to true. This is probably one of the easiest conditionals to make. So if pickup is equal to true, print you win. It's being angry right now because it's thinking I'm assigning a variable. If you just want to check a variable, do a double equals. A single equals is like you're assigning a variable a certain value. But if you're just checking the variable's value, then you double equals. Also, have them stacked like this. You can't do this. You can't do this. Have it like this. So now, if pickup is equal to true, then you can print you win. So let's try to play it. If the collectible's out of the way and we just go to the door, it's not saying anything. It's not saying that we win. How dare you? You better give me that validation. But then we go and pick up the present. And then we go to the door. It says we win. Holy crap. We have a fully functioning game right here, folks. It's so fun. I'm going to just play it again. I'm going to just check it out. We don't win. Let me in. Let me win. Let me in and win. Whatever. Fine. Yoink. Boom. Now we win. Still a little easy, isn't it? We could just pretty much go straight to where we need to go. Let's say we wanted to say something if we don't have it picked up. And this is where I can introduce you to another type of conditional statement, an if-else statement. So if we did pick it up, print this, else, print something else. I'm gonna type down, nah, bro, get the dang present first. Type whatever you want. So this pretty much just means if this happens, then do this. Otherwise, it'll be this. So when we enter the area of the door and we don't have the thing picked up, it should tell us to go get the dang present first. Yay! Telling us to go to the present. We get the present. I cannot speak. Boom. We win, baby. What a fun game. Not really a whole lot of challenge, is there? Not really a whole lot of stakes. Not really a whole lot of danger. All right. I see you. I see you. You want some danger? Fine, let's do some danger. I'm going to duplicate the floor and then boom, danger. Let's make a hole. There's some danger. Now there's some gameplay here. Nah, bro, get the dang present first. Wait a minute. Did it already say get the present first before I even? Yes. The reason it's doing that is because the area detection collider is colliding with the floor and it's counting that as a signal. I could just move it to not do that. I should teach you how to get rid of that, especially if yours was already doing that. I don't know if yours was already doing that. I am so sorry. Here's what I'm gonna do. I don't know how to do this, so I'm gonna do this in the only way that I know how to do this. So these functions have body in it, which is an argument, right? I want the body to be equal to the player so that it only detects when I touch it. Not when the floor touches it, not when anything else touches it, when I touch it. So how I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna control drag the player over there. Select all that and press tab just to move it over a little bit. And then I'm gonna make another if statement. If body is equal to player, double equals, colon. So in order to show you that that worked, I'm gonna overlap the floor and the wall again. Yep, it's not complaining. Complains when I go through it. But if I comment that out, then it automatically triggers. Now you might be like, what do you mean comment it out? You could select it and then do toggle comment or do Control K, and it pretty much just makes it to where it doesn't run that. You could use it as just not running certain lines of code, or you could use it to do stuff like this where you just sort of mention what you're doing here. Code for the door. So I'm gonna do the same with the player thing. If body is double equal to player, colon. So now it works fine. Doesn't automatically trigger. Wants us to get the present first. I get the present, it yoinks and it disappears, and I can still win. What happens if we fall down? We'd have to quit the game every single time we fell down in there. Could you imagine if you fell in a pit in like Mario or something, and every time you did that, you had to turn off the console and then reopen it? Could you imagine? So we're gonna make a little bit of a respawn mechanic. This is how I'm going to do it. Do not judge me. So pretty much when the player falls down there, we want a sort of marker to put them back in a specific place. So we can use a marker, 2D, and you can move it. This is the move tool right here, by the way. I'll move it back to about where the player is. So that's a marker 2D. A marker 2D pretty much just is a marker for whatever purpose you want it to be. Great, so it's a marker. So we fall down, nothing happens. Why? Well, first of all, we didn't set up the logic. It's not a respawn point, it's a marker. And second of all, we don't have any detection. Like we can scroll out, there's no detection, there's no colliders, there's no area 2D nodes. It will literally just fall into the infinite void of space. So how do we fix that? Well, if we want an area that will detect if we've fallen too far, we can make an area. Oh my God, I'm so bad at being a YouTuber. I'm gonna rename this death zone so that I can know that it is a death zone. And I'm gonna give it a collision shape. Do you remember how to set the shape for your colliders? Yeah, you do. It's in the inspector tab is right here. I want you to make this a world boundary shape. Why? Well, just drag it down. You zoom in, you could see that it's sort of like lines this direction. These lines stretch on to infinity in either direction. So as long as you fall past this point, like you could fall down over here and this will detect you. You could fall down over here and this will detect you. Well, it's not going to detect you as is because we didn't set up the logic. So let's do that. Let's go to the area node. You know how to access signals, right? Yeah, node. I'm gonna do body entered again. I'm gonna send it to the game script because I am too much of a beginner to do anything else. And it'll put a new function in our game script. Let's just check if it works. Let's do another print statement. Print, OMG, this hurts so bad. Type whatever you want. It's to help you. If you fall down there, OMG, it hurts so bad. So it works. Doesn't really respawn us though. I'm gonna actually rename this marker to spawner. The reason I renamed it is because I want to be able to reference it in the script. So I'm gonna control click and drag to reference this spawner as spawner, the variable. So what do you think would be the logic for this? If you were to explain it to me as a game developer, what would you say we would do? If the player falls down and touch this, what do you want the player to do? Do you want the player's position to be back where it was? Do you want the player's position to be where the marker is? How would you explain that to me as a game developer? Assuming you have both the player and the marker. These are the variable names. These are what you access. These are what you use, by the way, the variable names. If when we touch this, we want the player's position to equal the marker's position, we could just say player dot position is equal to spawner dot position. I said player and spawner because those are the names of my variables. When you type a dot, you have access to things like built-in functions. The position is actually a property. You'll notice in the inspector tab, if you go down to the transform tab, it has a position property. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Player dot global position is equal to the spawner dot global position. Whatever you named that marker point, if you didn't rename it, that's fine. So instead of it just being the position relative to the node's parent, it'd just be where they are. So now, ideally, if we fall down there, we should end up back where we were. See? And he's hurting, but that's fine. It works. We have a very janky respawn. Nice. And we win. We're not really perishing. You could just infinitely fall and take infinite amount of tries to do it. Nah, that doesn't sound like a game. You know, it does sound like a game. Limited lives. Let's implement a lives system. This will be perfect. Let's make another variable. You remember how to make a variable? You remember how to type your own variable? Var. I'm gonna call it lives. Let's say I start with 3. So now I have 3 lives. Is that simple and easy, right? I fall. No, because we didn't hook up the logic yet. I fooled you again. So thinking like a game developer, what would you do? How would you adjust this variable? Whenever you fall down into the thing, you want to take away 1 from the lives, right? So how do we do that? Well, whenever you fall into the thing, you take 1 away from the lives. Also, I did minus equals. That's just pretty much a programming way of saying you take what it was and then subtract from that. Because lives minus 1 is pretty much just like an operation in and of itself. So minus equals, or maybe you want to do plus equals. Maybe you gain a life every time you fall in a hole. I encourage you to be creative. But for this case, we're going to lose a life. So here's the thing. We know the logic doesn't work, but I still want to be able to see it. So here's another thing that we can do. Let's add another print statement. You know how to make a print statement? You remember how to do that? Print. Except you can also print variables to get their contents. So we have our lives here. So what if we tell it to print lives? So whenever we lose a life, we want it to tell us the current amount that is left. So if we fall in, you'll see that it goes to a 2. We fall in again, it goes to a 1. We fall in again, it goes to a 0. Oh, the game's over. No, it's not. Oh, -1 life. Oh no, -2 lives. Wow, this is getting ridiculous. We don't want to have an infinite amount of lives. We want it to stop at 0. Well, I mean, unless you want to be unique, then sure, you could have like negative amounts of lives. But for this case, I want to teach you how to do something else, which is more conditionals. Yay. So thinking like a game developer, what are we trying to do? If we have 0 lives, let's say the game quits, like the game closes down. If we get 0 lives, the game closes down. I'm actually going to move this farther down. But if I do have 0 lives, I don't want the player to respawn. I'm going to take that out because we know that it works. I'm going to do it like this. If our lives are equal to 0, then here's how you close down the game. There's a little built-in function called getTree, and it pretty much just gets the entire game in a nutshell. And then if you do .quit, it'll tell the game to quit. So if our lives get down to 0, the game should close itself down. So we fall. Boink. 2 lives left. Boink. 1 life left. Boom. 0. Wait a minute. What happened there? I'm not sure why that did that. I'm gonna restructure our little statement here again to be, if our lives are greater than 0, then you subtract 1 and then print it and then respawn. Else, get the tree of the game, .quit. So now let's see if that does what I want it to. Probably won't, knowing me. Yep, no, of course it didn't. Let's make it to where we subtract the lives first. And if the lives are still greater than 0, we'll print the amount and respawn. Otherwise, if it's not greater than 0, then we'll quit. I fall off, lose a life. I fall off, lose a life. Boom. Oh gosh. I practiced this video like 6 times and I cannot believe that I got hung up on that. So it is relatively important how and where you put your stuff, because I just spent like 20 minutes on that. My gosh, I'm a bad YouTuber. So we have a pretty decent game. We try to get to the end. It tells us we can't unless we have the dang present. We get the present and we win if we have the present in our hands when we go to try to leave. If we fall, we're teleported back to the marker point. If we run out of lives, the game quits. What if instead of it telling us we win, we just tell it to get the tree of the game, .quit, so that now the game will close itself down if we have met the win condition. Boom. Whoops. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You know, you lose all your lives, the game just force shuts down. You win the game, the game force shuts down. That doesn't make any sense. I need to get more sleep. You know what? Let's just make a main menu. While we're at it, let's just do that. We already know how. Come on. I know you know how to know how. Yeah. So right here, there'll be a plus button up here, and that's how you add a new scene. So 2D is fine. You can do 3D, but I'm teaching you 2D, so you better do 2D. I'm gonna rename it main menu to make it easier on me. So all we need for a main menu is just buttons, right? To add a button, this button will be for play. Move it right in the middle. It says play. We could save the scene as a main menu scene and the game scene. Let's play it. We can't play it because it goes automatically to our game scene. Well, how you can fix that? You go to the project settings, general, run, and this will run the main scene that you have selected. I want to change it to my main menu. So now when we press the play button or F5, it'll start with our main menu. Except our button doesn't work. Why? Because we didn't set up the logic. Why? Because it needs signals. Do you remember how to make signals? Yeah, you do. Node up here and signals. Well, actually, you got a little bit too ahead of me. Let me make a script for the main menu. Put it in my scripts folder. So when the button's pressed and connected to the main menu screen, scene, script. Jesus, I need sleep. It created a function in our game scene for whenever the button's pressed. So what do we want it to do whenever the button's pressed? Well, let's see if it works. Print. It works. So now let's put in our actual logic. So we want to be able to change the scene back to the game scene. So our handy dandy get tree. We want to be able to change the scene, right? So we'll go dot, put a dot between those, change, and then you'll realize it says change scene to file. That's perfect. It'll get some autocomplete, and then you can put in your game scene. Or you can go into your file system and find the game scene and then just drag it over and it'll bring the node path back out. Put it in there. So now whenever you press the button, it should change the scene to our game scene. Let's try it out. Boom. Wow. Oh, I about fell in. Bam. Now we have a full game with a main menu. We play the game. There's risks. You can actually game over. You can play it. Oh, I can't get through. Ooh. Here's something we can do. Instead of whenever we perish and whenever we win the game, instead of it just closing out the game, we can send them back to the main menu screen. We could do that, right? So instead of these quits, we could just change the scene. My gosh, I can't type. We could just change it back to the main menu. I'm sure it's not going to like that. I'm sure it's going to complain. Yep, it complained. In the debugger here, you click debugger, shows errors. It wants deferred calls and physics callbacks, and here's the thing, I don't know how to do that. So here's what I'm actually gonna do. I want a little pop-up that says you win or you lose. So let's make them. There's a thing that's perfect for this called a confirmation dialog box. It's hidden by default because that makes sense, but I want to be able to see it while I'm working on it. Me personally, I want it to be in the center, but it really doesn't matter. Let's rename this. Let's say this is the win screen. So the title is You Win. The dialogue will be, would you like to play again? Maybe. Oh, whoa. And then you can say yes, or you could say like you. So that's pretty much gonna be our You Win screen. Except not only is it just on, but the buttons don't work. So we want this thing to be able to pop up whenever we win. We want the win screen to pop up when we win, right? So it'd be about right here. So instead of going back to the main menu, let's just replace that. Let's say, actually, I'm gonna reference the win screen in my script. Again, you could call it whatever you want, and I'll make it to where if the player's at that area and they have the collectible, the win screen dot show, because I want to show the win screen. So now let's play it. Boom, boom. And the windscreen shows up, except the buttons don't do anything. And here's another problem that you probably noticed. Not only the buttons not do anything, we could still continue to walk around. So the buttons don't do anything, huh? I guess we can start making more signal. Windscreen confirmed. Send that back to our game script. So when we press the confirm button, we'll do what it says on the confirm button. Yes, I would like to replay. So here's a handy dandy get the tree function, get tree dot reload current scene. So now when we play it and we win, it'll show us this. And then if we press the confirmation, it'll reload the scene. Great, great, great. But what if we click the other button? Well, my other button is pretty much just like a no, I don't want to play again. I was thinking just quit out of the game, but now I'm thinking we can get the tree, but change the scene back to the main menu. Get tree, change scene to file, the file node path of your main scene, your main menu rather. So now when we win and we say we don't want to play again, it sends us back to the main menu. But if we do say we want to play again, then it resets. Here's a little bit of a problem with this though. Typically you win screens kind of pause the game. We get the handy dandy tree. The tree has a property called paused. And so what happens if we set that equal to true? Because it's a Boolean property. If you hold Control and you mouse around, you can see that some of these are underlined when you hover over them. If you click on paused, you can read the documentation. You could also click up here to search help and then search for whatever you'd like help with. And it shows you a lot of documentation. The paused property stops physics as well as signals and collision detection. Now, whenever we win, all of our physics processes should be stopped. See, we're in midair. And then we click, yes, we want to play again. And it doesn't work. But I was having so much fun. Can't even exit out. I have to exit out like that. Press F8. The reason the buttons didn't work is because we paused the windscreen to where even the buttons didn't work. How you would go about changing something like that. All nodes have a node property. You have a process mode. If you set that to always be processing, then it won't get paused like everything else will. So when we go and win our game, we're paused, but our main menu isn't. But and then when we try to open it back up, we just end up in a purgatory. Why is that? Because we forgot to unpause it whenever that's done. So when either of these buttons are pressed, we want to unpause the game. So get our tree and set paused to false for both of these. Get tree.paused is equal to false. Now let's see if that works. I have no idea. I thought it would. Well, let's see. So we win, boink. Purgatory. We click it. Now we're back. And we could play again. And the game unpauses and pauses at relevant moments. We could also leave, go back to the main menu, and then play it again. Oh, or this. Yeah, let's work on this. So I wanted to do the same kind of thing that we did with the windscreen, but make a lose screen instead. Go back to our game here. Let's make another confirmation dialog. I'm going to rename it lose screen. Only have it visible for when I'm editing it. And then when I'm done editing it, I'll make it invisible. So it's not on by default. So the title, you lose. The dialogue, wanna try again, bruv? Like, totally, like, it's like completely fine if you don't want to, but like, whatever, bro. Confirmation button could be sure, I guess. And the cancel button would be let me out. Let me out. And initial position, I want to be the center of the primary screen because it's just easier to see. So let's do the same thing. We want it to emit signals. No, we don't. Let's not do that. Oh my God. Help. Help. So now when we run out of lives, we want this to pop up. So if lives are greater than 0, then respawn. But if they're not greater than 0, then we had it to where it'd go back to the main menu. But let's make it to where, well, let me actually reference this lose screen in our script by control dragging. So now we say else lose screen dot show. So now it shows us our lose screen. So let's see how that works. Oh, well, it's on by default because I forgot to, oh no, get out. So you turn it off the visibility and boom. Let's go jump in a pit. Into that pit. FNAF. Boom. So the logic doesn't work. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to move the death zone a little bit farther down because I liked that. Let's set up some logic. So on the confirm button, and we could just shove our cancel in there too. So the lose screen asks us if we want to play the game again. So pressing the confirm button, we should, let's just copy and paste what we did for the other one. Clear those out and copy and paste this one because it's the same thing. So you want to replay it, make sure the syntax is correct, but also we want to pause it whenever that happens. Whenever we fall, get our handy dandy tree dot paused property is going to be equal to true. So we try it again, play. And then you try to click on something and you'll realize it don't work. Why? Because I paused the pause menu. Do you remember how I fixed that on the other one? No, I don't either. You go down to the inspector tab, you'll find all the way at the bottom, there's a thing called process. And we want to change this process mode to always, because we want to always be processing this node, whether it's visible or not, whether it's active or not. We don't want to pause the pause menu. So now we should have fully functioning menu logic. So we fall in a pit, 2 lives, fall in a pit, 1 life, fall in a pit. Sure, I guess. Hey, and it sent me back in. Got 2 more lives. Got 1 more life. Fall back in the pit. Let me out. it sends me to the main menu. Also, I know here's just a quality of life thing that I know nobody asked for, but under the ready function, let's just do print lives so that whenever the game loads, it prints the amount of lives that we have. Because I realized it wasn't showing us 3 in the console. It was just showing us 2. So now it starts with 3, 2, 1. You know what? You know what? Let's do some UI. You know what? That makes so much sense. So we don't have to look at it in the console. We wouldn't be able to know how many lives we had. So let's make some UI. Just to get in a good habit, I'm going to teach you about the canvas layer, which pretty much just splats things on a screen and keeps it there. Good for UI. So I'm just going to rename this UI. But under it, I'm going to put a label. And I'll just say lives UI because I want to be able to see how many lives I have on the screen. So let's move it somewhere here. I don't know. Lives go here. So now when we play it, we'll see that the lives are there. But what if we wanted, it's not actually saying the amount of lives that we have on there. So we're going to be going into the script again because we want the script to be able to tell it. So I want to reference the lives UI label in the script. Here's how you would change text on a label via script. So pretty much think of anything that you can see here. You can mess with it in script, right? So this is called a text property. So you probably remember how to access specific nodes properties, right? Like the player's position. I didn't teach you that at all. I don't know why I'm acting like you would have known that. But if you type the name of the variable that references the node, and then you put a dot, then you could pretty much reference any of the properties. So you do dot text. I'm gonna do equals, and I want it to be the same as lives. So you'll play and you'll quickly realize that ain't gonna work because lives is an integer and labels don't take integers. What integers are pretty much just numbers. You cannot reference numbers in here because the label wants something referred to as a string. We've done strings. All these yellow things are strings. Just pretty much text. But when you type a number, numbers aren't treated as just text. Even if you have numbers in your text, it's still counted as like text. But when you have numbers standalone like this, they're more so like mathematical, right? So we want to be able to print it as text, this number. So how do we change an integer to a string? We convert it. There's a function called str, which is short for string. It'll have some parentheses. You put it around lives and then play and bam, 3 lives. It shows us our amount of lives. Wow, we fall in a pit. It doesn't continue to show us our lives. Why? Because it's only showing us our amount of lives whenever the game starts on ready. It's not updating our lives whenever we lose them. So where do we lose them? We lose them here. So if we want to update our lives counter every time we lose a life, well, let's just copy this where we change the text to lives. And let me put it at the bottom here. Because we want it to be after the lives have been lost. But we want it to be regardless whether the live counter is above or less than or equal to 0. So now when we start, it'll say 3. When we jump in a hole, it'll say 2. When we jump in a hole again, it'll say 1. When we jump in a hole again, it'll say 0. And we can replay, and it'll go back to normal. Now we have a fully functioning game loop. I have been recording for almost 2 hours. Oh my goodness. Here's what I'm feeling like. Let's add a quit button to our main menu. Let's just add another button. I'm gonna name it quit. Text, quit. Move it over here, I don't care. Have it send out a signal. You know how to do that by now. Pressed. Connect it to the main menu. Get our handy dandy tree. Dot quit. So now when we press the quit button, boing, the game closes down. Cool. Ain't that so cool? We have a fully functioning game now. We have a main menu. When it loads up, we can leave at the main menu or we could play at the main menu and then we get into the game. We can't just win the game without getting the present first. But if we lose our lives trying to do it, we'll have to either restart or leave. Fully functioning game loop. You know what? While we're here, let's just name our game. Let's get a label and then type in the text. And so now our main menu title screen has a title. Like a real game. Grand. But what if we wanted to update the stakes a little bit more? I'm going to introduce you to a new thing called timers. I'm going to call this a level timer. Let's say you only got 10 seconds. You go up here to wait time, 10. One shot, stop after reaching the end? Yes. Auto start? Yes. So we got to complete our game in 10 seconds or else we'll get destroyed. But, you know, as we're playing our game, you might be on to me by now and you're just like, nah, we didn't hook up the logic for it. What do you mean? And we can't even see it anyway. Sure, whatever. I guess let's work on showing it first, I suppose. Label. Time goes here. I just type that so I can see where I'm placing it. You don't need to type that there. So kind of like we did with the other label, we're gonna reference it. Might as well reference the timer as well. And I'm gonna introduce you to something called func, which stands for function, physics process. Why I'm using the physics process function instead of the process function, because the physics process function runs so much less frequently. Because the process function will run like hundreds of thousands, if you know, quintillions of times per second, while the physics process is just like 60. So when we're displaying our time on the screen, I don't need it to be updating every 60th of a second. So like we did with the other one, I named it timer label because I'm an idiot. Timer label dot text is equal to, we have a level timer is what I called it. So now the text is equal to the timer. Now, if you try playing that, you'll realize that that's not how that works. So then you might be like, oh, we got to use the string function, right? You got to wrap it in a string. You got to convert it to a string. Well, here's the thing. That doesn't work either. That's just getting the node's unique name, pretty much. We need to reference how much time is left in the timer. So we can do that by doing the level timer dot time left. Oh my goodness, how coincidental. Because the timer has a time left property, which is the wait time minus the elapsed time. So now, boom. You'll see we got 10 seconds. That's a lot of numbers though. Not only is that a lot of numbers, but that's a lot of updating numbers. So here's the thing. Literally no other developer will tell you to do this, but I'm going to tell you to do this. But we can convert this because this is a float. I didn't even tell you what a float is. A float is pretty much like a number here, but they typically have a decimal place. So if this was like 3.0 or 3.3, it's just used mathematically differently. So they're treated differently in code. So what if we wanted to convert the float to an integer? You guessed it, we can do that. So we could wrap this while still being wrapped in the other one in another function. So now the float is being converted to an integer, which is being converted into a string. So now when you play it, you'll see, hey, it's a whole number. Nice. That's much cleaner, much easier to look at. I know this probably doesn't bother you, but it bothers me a little bit. After timer time left, do +1 because the integer is rounding it down. So it's pretty much starting at 9 instead of 10. So when you add 1, it starts at 10. Nice. I know we did a whole lot about that, but we didn't really get into the logic yet. Man, I'm tired. So let's send out a timer signal. It only has one signal. It's the timeout signal connected to our game script. Boom. So what do we want to happen whenever the timer counts all the way down? We could do the same thing that happens whenever the lose screen pops up, which is just this. We pause the game and we show the screen. Boom. So now the timer will go down. But if we don't have the game won by the time the timer goes down, the lose screen pops up. I forgot to teach you something very important really quick. If you want a camera on your player, then you just go to your player and then you push the plus button and then you do camera and then you boom, now you have a camera. So now there's a camera that follows along your player. You can see that the camera's following along with our player. Wow, that was an important thing that I really wanted to explain to you. And also another important thing that I wanted to explain to you. Well, first of all, this pink thing is the camera outline. Second of all, you'll see this blue outline here. That's the game window. So if you didn't have a camera, then this blue outline is representative of, so you see when we play the game that this is the blue rectangle. The blue rectangle. That's why I kept everything within the blue rectangles, because that's the game window. But if you had a camera, then you don't need to keep everything within the game window because you have a camera window. So that means, like, let's say I want to move that. Say I want to move this. I can move this over here outside of the game window. Let's say I move the player and the spawner all over here. So we can still play the game. The problem is the timer label doesn't follow through. So just put that under the UI and then change your references in the script and boom. Now your timer follows you while you have your camera going. Okay, that's all I wanted to teach you. Bye. Oh my god, bye. Whatever. This has been my complete coverage of how to make a video game for beginners in the Godot engine. I hope you learned some things. I hope I was clear enough. I know our game doesn't exactly look all that good, but if you want to learn how to make your own game art, then click here. Also, you might have noticed there are no sound effects and there's no music. If you'd like to learn how to make your own music, then click this video. I probably haven't uploaded either of these yet, but if you're watching this a couple weeks into the future, then maybe I have by that point. But if not, then, you know, I guess you just gotta subscribe. I'll see you guys later.